Hi friends, send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/you'll see. Now, before we get started, here's your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you and good afternoon to you. It's just after midday and a very happy Boxing Day to you from the GB newsroom. Well, as we just heard there, Reform UK's membership has overtaken the Conservatives just months after Nigel Farage's return as leader. Reacting to the news, he said it's a historic moment. Take a listen.
We've done it. We're through. We're through.
Well, the party's tracker showed more than 132,000 members by midday today. That's a 300% surge since Farage's comeback in June. Younger supporters, cheaper fees and frustrations with the Tories are all driving growth, as Farage claims reform is the future of British politics. The Conservatives last reported around 120,000 members. That was in November, but have since faced criticism for lack of direction under Kemi Badenoch. The government is facing mounting pressure to deliver on its promise to ban trail hunting as Boxing Day hunts gather across the UK. Campaigners say the practice, which mimics banned fox hunting, is just a smokescreen for illegal activity, citing hundreds of reports of wildlife and public disruption. The Labour government has pledged tougher laws, while ministers are considering harsher fines and prosecution for reckless hunting. But the Countryside Alliance has defended the practice, saying it's essential for rural life. At this stage, no timeline has been given for when the crackdown will take effect. Well, Reform leader Nigel Farage has been speaking to our Home and Security editor Mark White in Chiddingstone.
Whether you support fox hunting or not, as I say, has now become the tip of the iceberg in a much bigger issue about the way in which rural communities are being shut out, their opinions are being ignored. And we hear a lot about two-tier Britain. Well, this is very two-tier. If you're in the big cities, you matter. If you're living out in villages like this, increasingly it feels like you don't. And I do think, and we've seen the farming protests taking off around the country, peaceful farming protests. I do think you're going to get Labour MPs representing these seats feeling very twitchy.
In other news, a woman has been arrested on suspicion of murder after a man died in a Staffordshire village on Christmas Day. Police were called early on Wednesday morning, where a man in his 30s was found in cardiac arrest. Despite efforts to save him, he died shortly after, and a post-mortem is set for later today. The 33-year-old suspect from Cannock is in custody and a crime scene remains in place. Officers say locals, though, can expect a heightened police presence in the area. Dozens have survived a deadly plane crash in Kazakhstan that claimed 38 lives. The Azerbaijan Airlines flight caught fire while attempting an emergency landing after being diverted due to fog. Footage shows the plane landing at high speed before bursting into flames. Its black box has now been recovered. Unconfirmed reports suggest a bird strike may have caused the crash, and flights between Baku and southern Russia are now suspended as investigations are underway. 20 years on from the Boxing Day tsunami, victims and survivors are being remembered today. The 2004 disaster, triggered by a 9.1 magnitude earthquake, killed over 230,000 people across some 14 countries, displacing nearly 2 million. The Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has joined tributes with commemorations being held in Indonesia's Aceh province, where thousands of unidentified victims are buried. Ceremonies are also taking place in Sri Lanka, where 35,000 people died, including 1,000 passengers killed when waves struck the Ocean Queen Express train. And Boxing Day sales are here, and shoppers are set to spend an average of £236 each, with £4.6 billion expected to change hands overall. Barclays says most of that spending will be online, with practical items like food and kitchenware topping the list. Despite the cost of living crisis, that forecast average spend is still £50 higher than before the pandemic. Meanwhile, major retailers like John Lewis are next to keeping their stores closed today. But resale platforms are seeing a boost, with a third of shoppers looking for bargains on unwanted gifts to make their money stretch further. Well, our reporter Will Hollis is on the High Street for us in Nottingham with more on what people are spending today.
We're expected to see about 22 million people shopping for Boxing Day sales, but only 14 million of those shoppers will actually be real people on the high street. That good chunk of about 8 million people will just be people that will be logging on online, tapping away and making their purchases online, because as we say, many of the big retailers are staying closed. They would cite that it's because they want people to have more of a family experience, let their staff rest.
Those are the latest headlines for now. I will be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Darren.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Let's get stuck into today's topics. In what will surely go down as a historic moment in British political history, Reform UK is on the brink. Well, it has overtaken the Conservative Party in terms of membership. This comes as the party continues to poll strongly, with some opinion polls even putting them ahead of the governing party, Labour. Earlier, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, spoke to Nigel Farage before he headed off for his Boxing Day hunt.
Well, welcome back to Chiddingstone as things are really livening up now. Lots of people queuing for the bar there ahead of watching the horses and the hounds heading out. One of those who'll be on horseback is Nigel Farage. How important is this hunt? This is your local hunt. You've been coming for years.
Yeah, decades, certainly 40 years. Have a look around you. Where are all the toffs? The supposed aristocracy. These are just good, ordinary country folk, many working in farming, many for whom the hunt is a big social part of their life, but also the hunt does amazing work, looking after dead livestock, all sorts of things that they do, let alone the whole tradition of doing it. And I think, 20 years ago, the Hunting Act went through, abolishing fox hunting, but this has survived through trail hunting. A scented trail is put out, the hounds follow that, the horses follow the hounds. We've now got a Labour government saying they might even want to ban trail hunting. I mean, you might as well ban people riding horses.
Well, interestingly, government sources saying that they are looking to certainly tighten up the rules around trail hunting, bigger fines and alike. Is there a feeling in these communities, Nigel, that this government just doesn't get the countryside?
Oh, I think hunting is frankly the tip of the iceberg. We've got the attack on the small farm. There is no question their calculations over the number of family farms that would have to be sold off is completely out of kilter with reality. There's also a plan for government reorganisation. So mostly we have a county council and a district council. And the district councils, obviously in areas like this, have rural concerns for rural communities. Things like buses, phone connectivity, uniquely rural problems.
As we chat, Nigel, just get Oliver, our cameraman, to get some shots around here. It's worth just showing all of the local people, young children and alike, who are all out here. You were saying about...
Yeah, so if we finish up with unitaries, what will then happen is the politics of areas like this, for local stuff that really matters, will all be dominated by the big cities. And once again, the rural community is being shut out. So yes, the countryside, it really is under attack. There are too few people to stand up and defend it. But fascinatingly, Labour have about 100 MPs representing constituencies like this. And I think it's one of those areas where voter pressure, farmer pressure can be brought to bear.
So do you think now, given the sort of the way in which the party, the parliamentary party, is made up, which is, as you say, different to perhaps traditionally how we've seen Labour MPs formed, that there's going to be that pressure that's brought to bear that Labour's got to be a bit more cognizant of what's happening in the countryside?
Yeah, I mean, whether you support fox hunting or not, as I say, has now become the tip of the iceberg in a much bigger issue about the way in which rural communities are being shut out, their their opinions are being ignored. And we hear a lot about two-tier Britain. Well, this is very two-tier. If you're in the big cities, you matter. If you're living out in villages like this, increasingly it feels like you don't. And I do think, and we've seen the farming protests taking off around the country, peaceful farming protests. I do think you're going to get Labour MPs representing these seats feeling very twitchy.
Well, I was just going to ask you finally on that point about these protests. They've been extremely well behaved, very civilised, and indeed enjoying a lot of public support. Do you see perhaps things changing in the year ahead, that maybe that patience is going to run out, that perhaps they'll model themselves a bit more on their cousins in France, for instance?
Well, we're not French, are we? I just don't...
Heaven forbid.
No, well, quite. No, I don't think it. I mean, there might be one or two. And don't underestimate, there is fear and there is anger about a whole way of life disappearing. No, I honestly believe that the way this wins is to have the silent majority behind you. And I think in this country, anything approaching violence would be a disaster.
OK, Nigel Farage, thank you for talking to us on GB News, and enjoy the hunt today. Nigel and many others will be following the hounds as they trail hunt across the morning here, and hundreds more gathering in this village to enjoy the spectacle.
Right, we'll hear more from Nigel later on as he reacts to that news that reform has overtaken the Tories when it comes to party membership. Right, we'll get the thoughts now of my panel political commentator Susie Stride and TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons. Susie, ladies first, I'll start with you. How seismic do you think this is? Because we read reports yesterday that there is a new pressure group saying to Red Wall MPs of the Labour Party that they are concerned about Reform UK on the issue of immigration. So is this a sign of serious intent by Reform to actually challenge the two-party consensus?
I mean, I've said this all along. We have to take very seriously always what the British people are saying. We can't be snobby. We can't, just be like, water for ducks back about these things. Ultimately, Reform are concerning because they are gaining ground. Now, what I don't take is that Nigel Farage is anywhere near to being Prime Minister in 4 years' time. I don't believe that. I just don't think we've ever been a country of extremes. History doesn't show that. However, ultimately, no one knows, because in some ways we are in unprecedented times where we've seen things happen that we haven't seen happen before. I think what we can definitely say is that, Nigel Farage is someone to watch and to take seriously. And as I always say, the big parties need to be humble and need to listen as to why their people are not voting for them and are voting for Reform. And that's the key thing, not to get caught up in all the hype. Why are they losing these people?
I mean, Ryan, why do you think that is then? Why do you think the Conservatives are losing support? There'll no doubt be former members of the Conservative Party who have subsequently joined Reform. Why do you think this trend is clearly happening?
I think we've suffered, as in we, the Conservative Party. I've been a member of the Conservative Party since the age of 16. I can't imagine ever leaving the party. And I think a lot of members really struggled with the weak leadership we've had in the past. I'm actually very excited to see what Kemi Badenoch does as leader. I think she's quite measured. I think she's growing confidence at the dispatch box, and I'm looking forward to seeing her flourish in her role over the next few years. But how I see Reform, ultimately they're Conservatives. They appeal to Conservative members. I really see it as a protest party where a lot of Conservatives feel disgruntled. They don't know who to vote for. They feel a bit apathetic. Perhaps they want to exercise their right to vote, but they can't feel like they can vote for the Conservative Party.
One interesting question. There are a few of our viewers in the Your Say saying, I think it was a mistake for Nigel to attend this hunt on the day in which it's announced that they've overtaken the Conservatives as far as membership's concerned. It really does divide people quite spectacularly, the idea of hunting. I'm assuming, Ryan, forgive me for stereotyping you, that you are actually in favour of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it was a shame, actually, they banned fox hunting back in 2004. I've attended hunts. I haven't ever been on horseback, but I think it's a wonderful tradition that we have in this country. A lot of left-wing nutters want to eradicate everything good about this country. They want to eradicate every single tradition that we uphold, and I think it's bonkers now. The Labour government are going to attack rural communities yet again by trying to ban trail hunting. I mean, it's absurd.
Susie, I assume you don't agree with that sentiment.
I don't agree with that. I mean, like, look, I think this is a great country, the greatest in the world. But what makes our country great is not fox hunting. It's a whole lot of other things. It's our schools, it's our universities, it's our way of life. It's the fact that all major democracies, actually, there's something that, you know, the fact that, you know, we've got some of the lowest levels of corruption in the world. Our legal system, now, all of these things have been under strain under the last couple of decades. But, you know, especially when you visit other countries, which I'm not going to name what countries I visited, you think, I come back to this country, even America, and I was like, thank God for this country. We don't have the levels of homelessness they have there, you know, and even the fact that, you know, you've got to put your credit card if you know, if you've got a health bill, you know, if you hurt your foot playing football or rugby or whatever. Football and rugby are two other great things about this country. I just don't put fox hunting, and I'm going to be honest with you, I just think the vast majority of Brits do not put it on their list of this is what makes us great.
I agree with that. And, you know, a lot of viewers who are natural supporters saying the optics of it don't look great. I mean, I think Nigel is a champion of those rural communities that you speak of, and there is a real concerted effort to attack them. So we'll come back to my wonderful panel in just a moment. Thank you very much to Ryan and Susie there. Right, now shoppers across the country will be waking up early this morning hoping to grab a bargain in the Boxing Day sales. Now, the tradition began in the 90s when Prime Minister John Major relaxed Sunday trading laws and allowed shops to open on bank holidays. But it's feared the sales could be dying out, along with our high streets, with both Next and M&S announcing they won't be opening. Well, GB News' very own West Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, is on Nottingham High Street for us. Will, I assume it doesn't look like it's dying out there where you are, does it?
Yes, well, it's busy right now, just past midday. Some 22 million people are expected to take part in the Boxing Day sales. Of course, a large chunk of that now is online shopping. Only around 14 million people out of that 22 million are real physical shoppers heading out to their high street like this one in Nottingham to grab a bargain, to get an item on the sale and sometimes save 30, 40, 50 pounds, a little bit more if it's a really expensive technology item. But the big reflection that I'm hearing from the people that have been in Nottingham today is that those early risers, the people that are on the high street queuing up from 6 a.m. or sometimes in the past even earlier, just isn't there this year. And that's really because those big department stores like John Lewis, like Marks and Spencer's and Next have decided to stay closed this year, along with a whole host of other shops. Lush and other beauty brands like Superdrug have seemed to be really popular here this morning. It's expected to be around £4 billion that will be spent during the Boxing Day shopping season, and it'll be about £236 on average per shopper that they'll be spending. I've been hearing from people that most people are just trying to get a bargain, but a lot of people are actually quite happy just to be out here spending their Christmas money. And I've been speaking to a few of the people who were here bright and early, making sure that they had the first place in the queue today on Boxing Day.
Used to be a big Next sale, and you used to see loads of people here, walking past at 6 o'clock going to the Next. But yeah, they've knocked it on the head, and I've been doing this for about 6 years now, queuing up.
Yes, well, a lot has changed in the decades over Nottingham's shopping. It seems that a lot of people in Nottingham are still coming out today, still looking to grab a bargain, and while sales are expected to be up compared to pre-COVID years, a lot of the sales are online, with fewer people coming out to the high street, even when it's quite mild like it is today and has been this Christmas.
All right, Will, thank you very much for that update there from Nottingham High Street on Boxing Day sales. And, well, some viewers are split, rather, on that particular issue, arguing that some of them out there today need to find something else better to do with their time. Well, let's talk to the TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and the political commentator Susie Stride. I mean, does it appeal to you, Ryan, getting yourself out there and hitting the shops?
Well, I used to work in Harrods a few years ago when I was in my A-levels, and I remember it was always carnage. And I never particularly enjoyed working on Boxing Day, especially there. I mean, they used to have a huge, spectacular event to celebrate the Boxing Day sales, but I think they've scaled that back in recent years. But I think more people need to get out there, support local shops, independent stores, visit your high street as much as possible. I think there is a growing tendency now to just sit on your sofa, open up Amazon or other apps and just order online, and that's it. But we need to make an actual effort to support independent stores to keep them alive.
Susie, I mean, that's a good point, is it not? Use it or lose it, you could say.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't buy any clothes online at all, because for me, I like to try them on. And for me, I don't ever think... You're never going to see the absolute movement of everyone to online, because there's always going to be a whole group of people that want to try a pair of shoes on, that want to, you know, and also just the atmosphere. I love Christmas shopping. I was at Oxford Street a couple of days ago.
Wow.
And all the lights and...
You must be mad.
It was completely mad, but I was like Bond Street and the lights and all the angels, and it is so beautiful. And we've got these, you know, we've got great shopping places, you know, Lakeside and whatnot, and Westfield. And so, personally, I do Boxing Days sales. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. Obviously, I'm here today.
Have you noticed a change in it?
Oh, yeah, massive. Oh, yeah, massive. Like, back in the day, we'd be getting up at, like, 6 a.m. to be there to queue for Next, you know. And then, like, you know, as time goes on, you're like, no, I've got more money. I don't really need to be doing this anymore. I'm not getting up at 6 a.m. Usually, traditionally, we go on a walk on Boxing Day to Greenwich, which is lovely, but I've not done that because I'm here today. I don't know if I'll always do it, but for the next few years, I'll be doing it.
And Ryan, do you think actually it's the internet that's meant that the likes of Marks and Spencer and Next won't actually be opening their doors? That's a pretty big departure from the past, not too distant past.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the internet is definitely the main cause of that. And to be honest with you, I'm not even motivated by Boxing Day sales. I think throughout the year, on the internet, there's always some kind of discount. You know, there's a discount code here or there. So the Boxing Day sales, for me, I'm not really incentivised to get up really early in the morning or travelling into central London to face the Selfridges queue or anything like that on Oxford Street. But yes, I think the internet is the cause.
All right, thank you very much there. That's Ryan and Susie. We'll be coming back to them after this short break. Fairy Fitzy wants me to point out that Nigel is attending a trail hunt, Nigel Farage that is. No fox is killed, an animal scent is spread throughout the countryside and the dogs follow that, but not a fox. Fair enough to you, Fairy Fitzy. Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on the show. Have you had an argument this Christmas? Find out how to resolve those conflicts after this.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub aged 18 and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout, and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoz Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by Yoz?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like, I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so Yeah, I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark and...
You're going to Primark?
Got stopped by yours.
And how did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah, then he gave me his card and asked, explained everything, that he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you away.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun.
Wow.
Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest.
Wow.
To be able to say that modelling is my full-time job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face. Ready? 3. I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
This
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. Spending Christmas with family and friends is usually something Brits feel pretty excited about. Loved ones, delicious food, champers and party games. What could possibly go wrong? Well, not everyone is lucky enough to get through the festive period without an argument, especially with some people being forced to spend time with a difficult relative in an enclosed space. But once that can of worms is opened and you've found yourself at the centre of a historical family dispute, what can you do to turn things around? Well, the etiquette expert Diana Mather joins me now. Diana, thank you very much for your company. Now, this is a common theme, I assume, during the festive period, especially when alcohol is involved in the mix. How can you actually get yourself out of a sticky situation?
Well, I think you have to try and stop it starting in the first place. So you know those people who are likely to disagree if there's been a problem in the past. So make sure they're not sitting next to each other and try and get somebody else, in there for the conversation. Once you start hearing anything go wrong, then you've got to go and say, sorry, no, it's Christmas. We're not going to talk about that today. Have another mince pie or have another drink. And so try and keep people occupied, but keep the temperature low, which is not always easy. But as I say, if you know that Uncle Fred always has an argument with Auntie Flo, don't put them near each other and make sure somebody goes in to act as referee.
Yeah, Diana, do you think actually it's just best to avoid topics like politics, for example?
Definitely. The old thing always was, as far as etiquette was concerned, we never talked about politics, religion, illness or money. And actually that's a pretty good rule to stick to. Politics, I think Christmas Day can be a politic-free day. Nobody really wants to know about your operations or how many times you've been to the doctor that week. Religion is a very private topic. And also money. We don't need to talk about money at Christmas.
OK, so, if a fight breaks out on Boxing Day, for example, families gathered, Boxing Day hopefully not turning into actual boxing. But if a heated argument takes place and, you've had one too many words that's actually said that hurts somebody, how do you heal rifts within a family? That is a deeply, deeply unsettling experience for people.
It is. And I think then the host or whoever is in charge has to take charge and say, this is enough. What you've said is unacceptable. And really, if we're going to carry on and we're going to have a lovely afternoon, you've got to apologise, both of you. You've got to say you're sorry and agree not to talk about this again today. Because sometimes, if it's a teenager, you sometimes have to take them out of the room and be quite fierce and just say to them, stop it, don't wind each other up. This is, we're here as a family, let's make it a family day. If it's an adult who should know better, it is more difficult. But again, if you've got much older adults, then sometimes they are less tolerant as they get older. I have to say, I'm more tolerant as I get older, but some people are less tolerant. So you just have to say, look, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. It's not your business what they're going to do after university or whether their love life is good or not. Don't ask very personal questions, especially to teenagers.
Do you think as a society we've just become snowflakes, for want of a better word?
I think we're in danger of it because everyone's worried about their mental health and their feelings.
Yeah.
But what we've got to think about is other people's feelings. Never mind my feelings, it's your feelings if I say something awful to you. Or I shouldn't say something if I think about you first. So we've really got to be quite disciplined and think about other people, not just ourselves.
All right, Diana, thank you very much for that advice there. That's the etiquette expert, Diana Mather, joining us down the line. Let's talk to the TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and the political commentator Susie Stride. Ryan, the fact of the matter is, I've known a fair few Boxing Day arguments in my time. The family get together on Boxing Day. They're probably watching this now. Hello, Nana, if you're watching.
Thank you very much indeed. OK, thank you.
And actually, the fact of the matter is, it is difficult when you mention things like politics, for example. Do you just not bother? I can't imagine you shying away from a confrontation, to be fair.
No. And my family are incredibly pugnacious as well. So I think the alchemy, when we're all together in a confined space over Christmas, not just Boxing Day, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, even Christmas Eve, it inevitably turns into an argument. I mean, they've all gone to the Caribbean this year, thank goodness. So I'm away from my whole family. I can spend it with friends, selectively spent Christmas with people that I want to have peace with. And that's quite refreshing because every year, there's always an argument. I think we break every etiquette rule that was mentioned by Diana. We talk about religion, we talk about money, and we talk about politics, and it always comes up. But yeah, I can see why arguments happen, because you are just all of these big personalities potentially in a family stuck in one room for several hours whilst the dinner's cooking, whilst you're consuming it and everything after. It is a recipe for disaster.
All right. Susie, very brief comments from you on that?
We don't tend to have loads of arguments, but, I mean, I think when it's the big Greek family, then maybe there'd be a few more, but only light-hearted, you know.
Okay.
And we do discuss politics. My mum's, a Christian pastor, so we're going to talk about religion,
Wow.
you know. And actually, it's generally fine, and we play games, and we bond over games, and, yeah, so I don't think we have these problems, to be honest.
Very good.
But obviously lots do.
Yeah, well, they do, yes, yeah, very good stuff. All right, Susie Stride there and Ryan Mark Parsons. Now, here's the Vocal Zone Voice Studio Choir from South Derbyshire with Good King Wenceslas.
Good King Wenceslas last looked out on the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel. When the poor man came in sight, gathering winter fuel. Hear the page and stand by me, if thou know'st its telling. Yonder peasant, who is he? Where and what is dwelling? Slightly lives the goodly pence, underneath the mountain, right against the forest fence, by St. Agnes fountain. Bring me flesh and bring me wine, bring me pine loaves hither, together through the ruins of the rent and the bitter weather. Silent night is darker now, and the wind blows stronger. Fails my heart, I know not how. I can go no longer. Mark my footsteps through my page. Tread thou in and boldly. Thou shalt find the winter's rage. Breathe the bloodless holy. In his master's steps he trod, where the snow lay dinted. It was in the very sod which the saint had printed. Therefore, Christian men, be sure, wealth or rank possessing, ye who now shall bless the poor, shall yourselves find blessings.
Beautiful. That's the Vocal Zone Voice Studio Choir from South Derbyshire there. This is Merry Christmas Britain. Lots more coming up on today's show, including a look ahead to today's horse racing. And we're not talking politics this time. First, though, it's the news with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. It is 12:37 exactly. Well, the top story this lunchtime. Reform UK's membership has overtaken the Conservatives just months after Nigel Farage's return as the party leader. Their tracker showed more than 132,000 members by midday today. That's a 300% surge since Farage's comeback in June. Younger supporters, cheaper fees and frustrations with the Tories are driving growth. As Farage claims reform is the future of British politics, he says. The Conservatives last reported around 120,000 members in November, but have faced criticism for lack of direction under Kemi Badenoch. Well, the leader of the party, Nigel Farage, has been reacting to that news with our Home and Security editor, Mark White.
Incredible. Over 15,000 people have joined us and given us their 25 quids over the last 4 days. This is an historic moment when the newest party in British politics overtakes the oldest existing political party in the world. Something is happening. So, of course, I'm delighted.
The government is facing mounting pressure to deliver on its promise to ban trail hunting as Boxing Day hunts are gathering across the country today. Campaigners say the practice, which mimics banned fox hunting, is just a smokescreen for illegal activity, citing hundreds of reports of wildlife and public disruption. The Labour government has pledged tougher laws, while ministers say they're considering harsher fines and prosecution for reckless hunting. But the Countryside Alliance defends the practice, saying it's essential for rural life. No timeline, though, has been given for when the crackdown will take effect. 20 years on from the Boxing Day tsunami, victims and survivors are being remembered today. The 2004 disaster, triggered by a 9.1 magnitude earthquake, sadly killed over 230,000 people across 14 countries, displacing nearly 2 million people. Sir Keir Starmer has joined tributes with commemorations being held in Indonesia's Aceh province, where thousands of unidentified victims are buried. Ceremonies are also taking place today in Sri Lanka, where 35,000 people sadly died. And Boxing Day shoppers are avoiding the high street, with footfall down over 12% compared to last year. That's according to early data. Retail parks have fared slightly better, but overall activity across UK retail destinations is more than 10% lower than 2023. Analysts are blaming the shift to online shopping, rising costs for physical stores and changing habits being driven by year-round promotions. Barclays estimates we'll be spending, though, £4.6 billion, most of it, though, online. Well, our reporter Will Hollis is on the high street in Nottingham for us, and he has more on what people are spending today.
We're expected to see about 22 million people shopping for Boxing Day sales, but only 14 million of those shoppers will actually be real people on the high street. That good chunk of about 8 million people will just be people that will be logging on online, tapping away and making their purchases online, because, as we say, many of the big retailers are staying closed. They would cite that it's because they want people to have more of a family experience, let their staff rest.
That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 1 o'clock, and Darren will be straight back after this short break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. This festive season is less white and more grey for many of us, quite overcast scenes throughout the rest of Boxing Day. We have a cold front pushing its way into the north. This has been bringing outbreaks of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some of those quite heavy first thing this morning for Northern Ireland, but generally the front will be steadily moving its way northward, so it should turn drier into the afternoon here. But for much of Scotland, away from the far north, it is going to be a fairly damp and drizzly scene throughout much of today. For England and Wales, there is quite a lot of cloud around. This has lowered quite a bit to produce quite extensive areas of haze and mist around, even some localised fog in places as well, reducing visibility. So it is worth taking care when you're travelling. The best of some sunshine for parts of Yorkshire up towards Northumberland, and also for the far north of Scotland, the Northern Isles, perhaps seeing a few clear spells in there at times, but some cooler conditions here. Temperatures only seeing highs of 8 degrees Celsius. As we move throughout this evening and overnight, this rain band will still be in play for areas of Scotland, perhaps again just skirting its way further northwards across the Highlands, parts of Lewis and Harris, maybe fringing into areas of Orkney as well come the early hours of Friday morning. That cloud, though, is going to be really quite persistent everywhere else. Again, lowering, produce mist, hill fog, very murky to start off Friday morning. Again, there could be some slight travel issues if you are out and about first thing. Temperatures, though, not too chilly at all, mostly between 4 and 6 degrees Celsius. On Friday, it is relatively a very similar picture for most of us. The rain band, at least, though, will weaken, so the rain will be lighter and patchier for areas of Scotland. Some patches of drizzle are possible elsewhere, particularly over higher ground around some coastal districts. Otherwise, though, it's going to be very grey, overcast. Temperatures lowering because of that lack of sunshine, generally around 6 to 9 degrees Celsius. A touch more brightness possible at times over the weekend, but it does turn more unsettled as we head towards New Year. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's time now to go through all the latest sports news with the sports broadcaster, Aidan McGee. Aidan, Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you, Darren. Great to see you, mate.
Now, tell me, first of all, going through all of the kickoffs that are taking place today, it's a heavy footy day.
Yeah, it's a huge period for football anyway, isn't it? I mean, they often say that league titles and relegation issues are not completely defined, but you learn a lot about your team when you play a lot of fixtures in a short space of time. It tests your resources, it certainly tests your squad. If you lose 3 games over that period, then you're looking at a pretty bleak January, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Pep Guardiola, I mean, when I think of him, I think of winning.
Success, completely, yeah.
But that ain't happening at the minute. What's gone wrong at Manchester City?
Well, he's never had a run like this he started at Barcelona, I remember him taking over there in 2008. So what's that? Almost getting on for 20 years, isn't it, really, of his managerial career. It's 850-odd games. He's never known a period like this. And I wonder if there's a case that it's a bit of an instance of he's never been in this position before and he's having to learn the job. It's one thing going for Champions League titles, of which he's won 3, Premier League titles, Bundesliga, La Liga, which he's all won. He's won domestic competitions as well. But has he been in a situation where he's been consistently losing games? They haven't had a period like this at City since about 2016. They've lost as many games in the last 12, which is 9 matches in the last 12, as they've done in the previous 106. So that's the kind of drop-off you're talking about. And then some of his behaviour's been a bit peculiar. You saw the nail marks in the bridge of his nose and the marks on his head. I mean, I thought he had a bust-up with a player.
I think something's going on. I think, honestly, there must be something going on.
Well, he's not used to this situation, that's absolutely for sure. Listen, the fans are going to keep faith with him, there's no doubt, but they should beat Everton today. They're 0-0 last we heard, or if they're just joining us, as they often say on the radio vernacular. But there's also this incident of he brought the players in last night to sleep at the training ground ahead of today's game. Now, he'll probably argue, if anyone asks about it in the press conference afterwards, that look, it's an early kick-off, but you don't normally do that for a home game, Darren, and that would annoy the players having to go in and sleep at the training ground in these sleep pods there on Christmas Day. Pep Guardiola may be justified in saying, well, look, we're on a losing run, we've got to try and do something different. As his opposition manager, Sean Dyche, said today, these players haven't turned into bad players overnight, but something's got to give.
And speaking of another manager, Frank Lampard, obviously the name itself has recognition.
Absolutely.
But actually, we're learning quite quickly that name recognition don't make an automatically great manager, does it?
I think it was George Graham who said to me maybe 20 years ago, just as he was leaving the game, actually, he said, the first thing you've got to do as a manager is forget the player you were.
Right.
And I think some of these elite players, we mentioned Wayne Rooney, who's going up against Frank Lampard today, have real trouble doing that, Darren, because they're coaching players on the training pitch that will never be able to do what these top players are able to do. And I think it's frustrating for some of them, but honestly, you look at the number of great players who make great managers down the years, it's not been that many. You look at the 66 team in England.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can count Jack Charlton maybe as one, but Alan Ball had some success and some dismal jobs at other places. The rest of them achieve very little at managerial level.
Transfer,
it's a different skill set.
Automatically, yeah.
Skill set.
Right, give me the horse racing and give me the darts. What's going on?
So I'll do the horse racing first of all. Huge day as well in the calendar for horse racing. We've got the King George VI chase at Kempton.
Have you put a bet on?
No, I haven't actually. But I mean, if I was going to offer anyone a tip, it would be Spillane Tower, trained by Jimmy Mangden for JP McManus, ridden by Mark Walsh. This is a hunt race, of course. Very much under threat in the last few years, as Nigel was saying earlier on, just the concept of hunting and, and the cruelty to animals. Certainly some of the animal rights protesters have had their say in the last 5-6 years. It's affected the national. But I would go for that one. 10-3 you can get with some bookies. It's underway at 2:30. Corbett's Cross is not a bad bet as well, ridden by Derek O'Connor, but it's a huge day just in general. There are races at Aintree, Fontwell Park, Market Raisins, Sedgefield, Wetherby, Wincanton. That's a flat race, and Down Royal in about 20 miles outside Belfast, which my dad used to go to when he was a little boy.
And
the darts. I love that. Look, Luke Littler is in action on Saturday, and he's the favourite. I was there last Sunday watching the Arrows. What an event it is, Darren. It's just so good. I mean, so many years ago they were talking about, Barry Hearn said to me, we're taking it from the Circus Tavern to the Alexandra Palace. That was 800 people capacity to 6,000. I said, it will never work, Barry, because you won't be able to recreate the pub atmosphere. I was wrong. Now they're looking, I think next year will be the last one at Ali Pali. I think they'll look to take it to a stadium. They've got the Premier League the Premier League meetings all around the country in areas that don't see top-class sport, and I think that Luke Littler has done more for that sport. I can't think of another breakout act quite like that, but he's in action on Saturday against Ian White, and we'll see how he gets on.
He's a superstar.
Without doubt.
I can't believe his age, though, Aidan, to be honest with you. I still don't quite believe it. He does look older than he is.
I want to see his passport.
Yeah, I do. All right, Aidan McGee, thank you very much. Now, my friends, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on the show, including more reaction to the news that Reform UK now has more members than the Conservative Party. See you after this.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Jaguar has ditched its growling big cat logo as part of what can only be described as a woke rebrand. The badge that has been used for decades, look at it, beautiful, on the bonnets of luxury cars has been swapped for a curved geometric J badge. They've also released a brand new advert, look at it, for their rebrand, which prompted Elon Musk to ask if the company actually sold cars. I thought this was a wind-up. It's not. It's true. And joining me now to discuss this is the motoring journalist, Amanda Stratton. Amanda, what on earth is going on at Jaguar? The car of James Bond, Batman, Arthur Daley has gone off the scale woke. Please make me make sense of it.
The E-Type is an absolutely iconic car, and it's important that people remember that, in fact, in its heyday, Jaguar was an incredibly prestigious brand, more so really than other British brands like Aston Martin, for example. But, you know, people in the industry are left sort of scratching their heads because you need to do something bold, you need to do something that catches people's attention, but you also need to stay true to who you are and what you are, and I'm not sure that this is it.
Amanda, that could be an advert for anything. It could be cat food. It could be Karl Lagerfeld. It could be literally anything apart from a Jag. Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, OK, we're talking about it. So we are talking about it, but we're not talking about it for the right reasons, are we?
And I think if I was going to be speculative here, I would like to think that this is actually all part of a cunning plan to get everybody talking about it. Yeah. So when they do launch the first new car that we're going to see, which, you know, people have been waiting, as I say, since 2001.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. Have you got your stirrups, or maybe dressing up in your finest attire is more for you? Well, horse racing, as we were mentioning there with Aidan McGee, it's a huge sporting tradition on Boxing Day. Today, events are taking place in Aintree, Kempton and Wetherby. And our reporter, Doogie Beattie, is at one of the events in Northern Ireland.
Racing will come to an end here at about 3:10. Racing will come to an end about 3:10, and people will be able to go home, enjoy their Boxing Day dinner, take off the glad rags that they've had on display here today. So many well-dressed people enjoying the day, and hopefully they will be back for New Year's Day when racing begins once more.
All right, I love Doogie Beattie, I really, really do. OK, let's have a very brief chat with my panel here, TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and political commentator Susie Stride. I mean, Susie, horse racing, has it ever appealed to you?
Not really.
No?
Not really, I'm going to be honest with you.
You don't think it's cruel? You're not going to go all vegan on us, are you?
Oh, no, I'm not a vegan. I'm a Greek. We eat meat, you know. We're big meat people.
I have been slightly unkind.
No, I mean, I've never gone, but no, I think there's nothing wrong with, you know, I think it would be quite fun, and people will get dressed up, don't they, and whatnot. It's that bit from My Fair Lady, which is one of the most hilarious, you know, film moments of all time.
I mean, Ryan, where are you at on it? Horse racing?
No, I love horse racing. I think it
Do you bet?
Yes, and I think it's such a glorious day out. My favourite horse race, well, in the calendar is probably Ascot, Royal Ascot, and you get dressed and celebrate the occasion. It's marvellous.
All right, thank you very much to my panel there. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Don't go away, we're going to get you weather, and I'll see you after that.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If you are planning a Boxing Day walk today, then for some of you I can promise dry conditions. That is all thanks to this area of high pressure out in continental Europe that is stretching its way in across much of England and Wales. But further towards the north, we do have this cold front slipping southwards across Scotland and Northern Ireland. So it is a damper and wetter start to the day here with drizzly outbreaks of rain. To the far north of the Northern Isles, we will see some slightly brighter skies throughout today, a few showers to watch out for, but the winds will be a touch lighter today compared to what we did see on Christmas Day itself. This rain band then is going to be in play across quite a lot of areas of Scotland, so really quite damp and dreary, unfortunately. Certainly raincoats will be needed for any outdoor activities here. Hopefully in Northern Ireland it will turn drier into the afternoon, still relatively cloudy. The best chance of seeing some sunshine is going to be across parts of northeastern England, parts of northeast Wales as well. Might just see a few cloud breaks also. Otherwise it's quite widespread grey skies for many of us. Temperatures generally around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius as our highs. Into this evening and overnight, that rain band is still in play across the far northwest, still quite damp and drizzly here. Elsewhere, it's a cloudy night. Can't rule out some spots of drizzle also over the higher ground sites, fog in there as well. But with all the cloud around, it's certainly not going to be too chilly. Temperatures holding up in mid-single figures at least. On Friday, well, there's not that much deal of a change. You'll see a lot of widespread cloud around grey skies for many of us. Again, a touch of drizzle possible over the highest sites, though the rain band across Scotland will begin to fade out a touch more. The rain here generally turning lighter and patchier. The rest of the brightness across parts of the Northern Isles, where here we'll start to see some cooler conditions moving its way in. Is there any chance of some sunshine for other areas? Well, hopefully on Saturday we will start to see more in the way of those sunny spells emerging, but by the time we reach the new working week, it's looking unsettled again. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting a call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a time for the vegan community to get together, as well as an opportunity for non-vegans to try going plant-based.
Well, joining us now is some of her delicious hummus. We both love hummus. This is a great thing. This is the founder of Chickpea, Hannah McCollum. Hannah, lovely to meet you. And you've brought in some of your beautiful products in front of you here. So can you talk us through some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a range of chilled hummus, and then latest to the range of a new ambient snack pot, which is a fridgeless hummus that doesn't require refrigeration. But I started Chickpea because of my love for hummus, but also sustainability and reducing food waste and encouraging people to be more plant-based without saying go vegan.
Does normal, say, traditional hummus have anything that's not vegan appropriate in it?
Not really.
No.
I think
it's always chickpeas, olive oil, maybe some other bits.
Yeah, lemon juice, aquafibre or water to help with the consistency, garlic, and rapeseed oil or olive oil.
And there's a bit of a misconception about veganism that I hear a lot, where people say, look, I'm not a vegan, I love my steaks, I'll just get out of there now. But there's a misconception that you don't get the protein, you don't get the fats, and you're kind of just eating processed salads and, fake meat and things. But that's not quite the case, especially with chickpeas, right?
Yeah, I think protein is really important, and actually a lot of people think I need a certain amount of fish every week or meat, but actually a lot of the fish and meat that you're eating are eating higher protein foods. So algae, seaweed, pulses, all these types of plant-based foods for me, veganism is like you could have a delicious rye seeded bread with just loads of roasted vegetables, seeds, tahini sauce on top.
That sounds
and there's nothing beige in there at all.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Boxing Day. I'm Darren Grimes on GB News. Are we witnessing a political earthquake, my friends? Reform UK has overtaken the Conservative Party in terms of membership. So I'm asking, is this a sign that Nigel Farage is destined for number 10 Downing Street? And it's a big day for bargain hunters as the Boxing Day sales start, with Brits expected to spend an eye-watering 3.7 billion quid in this year's sales. The hunt is on. Large crowds are gathering for the traditional Boxing Day hunt. But with campaigners urging the government to ban trail hunting, could this year's event be the very last? And it's a big day in the Premier League, with Man City manager Pep Guardiola looking to turn around his team's fortunes following 9 defeats in 12 matches. Astonishing. Now, send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. You're all making me very jealous, spending your Boxing Days having fun. How dare you? First of all, we're going to get your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you, and good afternoon to you. It's just coming up to 2 minutes past 1. Well, let's start this hour with some breaking news from Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire, where we're hearing that a double murder investigation has been launched. That is after 2 women have sadly reportedly died following a stabbing there. Thames Valley Police's major crime unit say both women, one aged 38, the other 24, died at the scene in Bletchley on Christmas Day. We're also hearing a teenage boy and a man in his late 20s are also seriously injured following that reported stabbing, but at this stage are stable in hospital. A dog was also injured in that incident. It was taken to vets, but sadly did not survive. Police say they have arrested a 49-year-old man on suspicion of murder and of attempted murder, and he remains in custody. Reform UK's membership has overtaken the Conservatives just months after Nigel Farage's return as leader. The party's tracker shows more than 132,000 members, a 300% surge since Farage's comeback in June. Younger supporters, cheaper fees and frustrations with the Tories are all driving the party's growth, with Farage claiming that reform is the future of British politics. The Conservatives last reported around 120,000 members. That was in November, but have since faced criticism for lack of direction under Kemi Badenoch's leadership. Well, Nigel Farage has been speaking to our Home and Security editor, Mark White, giving his thoughts on that news.
Incredible. Over 15,000 people have joined us and given us their 25 quids over the last 4 days. This is an historic moment when the newest party in British politics overtakes the oldest existing political party in the world. Something is happening. So, of course, I'm delighted.
In other news, the government is facing mounting pressure to deliver on its promise to ban trail hunting as Boxing Day hunts are gathering across the UK today. Campaigners say the practice, which mimics banned fox hunting, is a smokescreen for illegal activity, citing reports of hundreds of wildlife and public disruptions. Labour has pledged tougher laws, while ministers say they're considering harsher fines and prosecution for reckless hunting. But the Countryside Alliance defends the practice, saying it's essential for rural life. At this stage, no timeline has been given for when the crackdown may take effect. Well, let's get the thoughts again of Nigel Farage. He's been speaking to Mark White in Chiddingstone today.
Whether you support fox hunting or not, as I say, has now become the tip of the iceberg in a much bigger issue about the way in which rural communities are being shut out, their opinions are being ignored. And we hear a lot about two-tier Britain. Well, this is very two-tier. If you're in the big cities, you matter. If you're living out in villages like this, increasingly it feels like you don't. And I do think I do think, and we've seen the farming protests taking off around the country, peaceful farming protests, I do think you're going to get Labour MPs representing these seats feeling very twitchy.
International news now, and dozens have survived a deadly plane crash in Kazakhstan that's claimed the lives of 38 people. The Azerbaijan Airlines flight caught fire while attempting an emergency landing after being diverted due to fog. Footage shows the plane landing at high speed before bursting into flames. Its black box has now been recovered. Unconfirmed reports suggest a bird strike may have caused the crash. Now, flights between Baku and southern Russia are suspended as investigations are underway. 20 years on from the Boxing Day tsunami, victims and survivors across the world are being remembered today. The 2004 disaster, triggered by a 9.1 magnitude earthquake, killed over 230,000 people across 14 different countries and displaced nearly 2 million people. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has joined tributes today, with commemorations being held in Indonesia's Aceh province, where thousands of unidentified victims are buried. Commemorations are also taking place in Sri Lanka, where 35,000 people died. And Boxing Day shoppers are avoiding the high street, it appears, with footfall down over 12% compared to last year. Retail parks have fared slightly better this morning, but overall activity across UK retail destinations is still more than 10% lower than in 2023. Analysts blame the shift to online shopping, rising costs for physical stores and changing habits driven by year-round promotions. Barclays, though, still estimates will be spending £4.6 billion today, but most of it, as in previous years, will be online. Well, our reporter Will Hollis has been on the high street in Nottingham for us today, and he has a bit more on what people are spending.
We're expected to see about 22 million people shopping for Boxing Day sales, but only 14 million of those shoppers will actually be real people on the high street. That good chunk of about 8 million people will just be people that will be logging on online, tapping away and making their purchases online, because, as we say, many of the big retailers are staying closed. They would cite that it's because they want people to have more of a family experience, let their staff rest.
Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Darren.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks very much, Sam. Now, my friends, in what will surely go down as a historic moment in British political history, one of the UK's newest political parties, Reform UK, has overtaken the world's, well, democracy's oldest, the Conservative Party, in terms of actual membership. Reform has surged. This comes as the party continues to poll strongly, with some opinion polls even putting them ahead of the governing Labour Party. And especially in Wales, my friends, something is really going on. So is Nigel Farage destined for number 10? Mark White got the Reform UK leader's reaction earlier on.
Got the news through that the numbers for Reform have overtaken the Conservatives. Your reaction?
Incredible. Over 15,000 people have joined us and given us their 25 quids over the last 4 days. This is an historic moment when the newest party in British politics overtakes the oldest existing political party in the world. Something is happening. So, of course, I'm delighted.
And I mean, you really feel that momentum that in 2025 something special is about to happen, do you?
Yes, I mean, when you think this has happened organically, we haven't advertised, we haven't had full pages in newspapers, this is word of mouth, it's people getting together over Christmas and talking to friends and family and saying, you know what, something's got to be done.
Well, that's Nigel Farage's thoughts there. Let's get the thoughts of my panel, political commentator Susie Stride and the TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons. Now, the two of you aren't exactly Reform, you know, we have to put that on the record there from the offset, but I'm sure that the two of you would agree that Reform propose a threat to both the Conservatives and the Labour Party now. It's not just the Tories. So, I mean, Susie, should Sir Keir Starmer, well, be sitting a little bit more uncomfortable in number 10 Downing Street, despite that massive majority?
I don't think uncomfortable, but I think, you know, you need to... It's really important that you look at reform and you see, well, what is going on in this country? Why are there, you know, vast numbers of people that should be Tory voters or should be Labour voters, whatever it may be, and why are they so attracted to reform? And I think there's something about... They're a new party. I think there's something about that they look at Nigel Farage and they feel like he's authentic and he speaks to their concerns. I think there is, you know, a concern in this country around immigration and control of immigration and, you know, the perception that the Tories failed massively on that and a sense that maybe are Labour going to take this seriously enough.
Is it immigration, do you think? Is it immigration that they need to...
I think there's two big things. I think there's something about authenticity in leadership and people feeling like they're heard and they're listened to, they're represented. I think there's immigration. But I think there's this wider thing about working class people. Yeah. You saw what happened in America. The fact is working class people thought the Democrats were not representing them and they put their vote to Donald Trump. And I think, you know, we have to be very careful in this country and say, well, are working class people being listened to?
And Ryan, I mean, the Conservative Party might do all right with you leafy liberals, as you might call the Lib Dem-facing Tory seats, you know, the sort of the shires, as it were. But winning back the red wall, I mean, can Kemi Badenoch really do that? And Nigel's the only one with a chance, surely.
Well, I think it's going to be tough for Kemi. You can see what I'm satisfied with is that Conservatism is popular. And we're seeing these numbers grow for Reform. I'm not a member of Reform. I never will be a member of Reform, but it's good to see Conservatism popular in this country. I, to be honest with you, see Reform as a sort of more rambunctious, tacky Conservative Party. Boisterous, loud, the likes of Lee Anderson. I mean, I agree with Susie that we need to have more authentic leaders, and I think you see that with Nigel Farage. And I think there's a broader appeal with people like him, politicians that have that authenticity. But I really don't see them as a threat. If you look at the parliamentary numbers, they've got 5 MPs versus 121 Conservative members of Parliament. I mean, on that basis alone, they're not a threat at all to the Conservative Party, and I really can't see that changing over the next few years when we have a general election.
Hang on, because even in Scotland and Wales, you're seeing that actually in Wales they're certainly overtaking the Conservative Party, but in Scotland they're doing very well too, so you can't rule them out and say that they're not a threat.
I think it's just a very short-lived movement, a little bit of momentum and noise, like I said. They're very loud and rambunctious. I mean, Nigel Farage is great at this. I mean, look at UKIP. Where's UKIP now? I mean, Brexit, he delivered that, but these are all very short-lived campaigns, and I see Reform as similar to that.
I mean, Susie, I don't agree with that. I see something going on here because I, over Christmas, spent time with some family friends, and they never struck me as remotely political before, but they all said we need Nigel Farage. They all said that they were getting involved like they never had before. So I think there is something going on out there, and it's not just because, you know, I sit here and take in this news on a regular basis. It just strikes me that there is a movement and a desperation, a hunger for change.
Yeah, I mean, you almost feel... I mean, in some ways, I'm thinking back to what David Cameron did with the Conservative parties, you know, like hugging a hoodie and huskies. I mean, not that he did anything good for the environment, but obviously what he was very good at, he did this thing where he kind of transformed the image, you know, of the Conservative Party, something that Tony Blair did as well. And you almost get this sense that both parties need to think about this and need to think about how they're portraying themselves to the public. It's very hard to tell whether it's going to be short-lived like UKIP. UKIP was short-lived. I think the public are in a different place. There's something about post-pandemic where people have come out and people are different. I just think people are different.
But do you think actually, you know, we're into what will be the coming up to a year next in July of Labour government.
Yeah.
It's half of that. And the fact of the matter is, it ain't gone too well, has it? So Nigel Farage is probably rubbing his hand with glee.
I think, look, it's been a very tricky start, you know, from the riots to a whole lot of other things. It's not been, you know, it's not been the easiest, you know, road. However, I do think that 2025, that things are going to begin to look far better for the Labour Party, because I think there are going to be wins around the NHS, wins around education and wins around other areas. But ultimately, look, this is not an easy political climate.
All right. Well, we'll see. That's a note of optimism for the Labour Party, and one that's cheery, shall we say. Rose-tinted, rose-tinted. All right. Thank you very much, Ryan and Susie. Now, shoppers across the country woke up early this morning hoping to nab a bargain in the Boxing Day sales. The tradition began in the 90s when Prime Minister John Major relaxed Sunday trading laws and allowed shops to open on bank holidays. But it's feared the sales could be dying out, along with our high streets, of course, with both Next and M&S announcing they won't be opening. Well, the consumer and retail expert Helen Dewdney joins us now. Helen, thank you very much for your company. A very Merry Christmas. Are you experiencing and seeing a trend that suggests that Boxing Day sales are on the out? Is it more Black Friday, this American import?
I don't think they're on their way out at all. They're just different. They're just moving to online. So people are sitting in the comfort of their own homes and flicking through sites and getting the best bargains, you know, with a cup of tea and a bar of chocolate.
I mean, does that spell disaster then for the high street?
I think, well, we're seeing the high street having a lot of difficulties over the last few years, even before the pandemic. So I think it just makes it more and more difficult for the high street.
And what explains that trend of the likes of Next and M&S saying that they just won't open?
Because I think they're seeing that they're making the sales online. They're seeing more people shopping online. So they don't see the need to open the stores. I mean, they're saying it's because they're being kind to their staff, but they're not offering their staff, you know, 3 times the salary like they used to encourage staff to work. So there isn't that opportunity now for staff to work if they wanted to.
And if these big behemoths are saying that it's not worth us opening because, you know, online shopping will make the money anyway, well, what hope have the other smaller independent retailers got?
Absolutely. It's very difficult for them because obviously the big stores are quite often what attract people to the high street. So it is very difficult for them. They've just got to be able to bring on different offers and, you know, move to online themselves.
I mean, with your expertise in retail and consumption of goods, do you think the high street, it's basically done for? Can it turn things around? Do people still have a longing for brick and mortar stores? I mean, one of our panellists here today says she simply won't buy clothes on the internet. Is there still a need for the high street?
I think there is. I think people still enjoy going out to the shops, you know, and having a cup of tea and a biscuit with their friend, you know, and having that day out. But also this is the season when they don't necessarily want to be going out in the rain and the horrible weather. But we are seeing that where local authorities are being that little bit more creative, that's where we're seeing the high street being able to have a little bit of revival, you know, where their art has got involved. And, you know, so we're seeing creative ways of bringing people into the high street. That's what works, not just doing the same old thing, because that's not working. It needs some creativity. And as I say, those artists coming in and maybe bringing some events that actually bring people in. And then once they're in, they'll go shopping. But when it comes to clothes, obviously, yes, people are saying they still want to go and try them on. Because when you've got online, you can still do that because you're able to return items within, you know, you can tell the company you're going to return them within 14 days and then the 14 days to send them back. But what we're seeing now, particularly in the last year or so, is a lot of stores charging for those returns.
Yes.
So that, in effect, may help the high street.
OK. All right. Well, thank you very much there. That's Helen Dewdney, the consumer and retail expert. Right, let's talk to TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and political commentator Susie Stride. Ryan, the idea of the high street just being totally obsolete, does that fill you with dread as a former retail man yourself?
Yes, it does. I think it's incredibly sad if that were to happen. And I think a lot of it is an attitude change from consumers. You need to get up from your backside and get off your phone or laptop and actually make an effort to go to the high street to support small business, because otherwise they won't survive. They need your business, they need your money, but that requires a bit of effort. You need to get out of your house, touch some grass, breathe in the fresh air, and spend some money locally and independently.
I mean, Susie, I don't know about you, but all that's on my local high street is Turkish barbers and betting shops. It's very depressing.
Yeah, I mean, we literally had this conversation yesterday at Christmas. Not a controversial one, but we were talking about in Tower Hamlets, we don't really have a high street. Got a Canary Wharf going on, but, you know, we don't, sadly, which is a pity. But the thing is actually, like Hackney has a revived high street, so it is possible.
How did that happen?
Well, I was talking to my dad about it because he knows a lot about these things, and he was, you know, in some ways it's probably like the trendies have moved in.
Yes.
Got a bit of gentrification going on, and you've got this kind of beautiful mix. Actually, you've got like a Primark and an M&S and music, and there's a beautiful church, Saints Church, and so there's a bit of a revival there, and I think that is possible. But you know, I do think there are always going to be the hardcore like me who want to go out and want to touch and feel and try on and
it's the
whatnot.
Experience as well, isn't it? And that's what
100%.
Retailers have got to focus on, perhaps, is the experience to get people and attract them in. Anyway, thank you very much to my panel there. Now, thousands of people are gathering across the country to partake in annual Boxing Day hunts. It's got many of you talking on your say right now, with many claiming that they play a vital role within local communities. But in many places, they'll also be facing opposition from campaigners who believe the practice is inhumane. GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White has been at a hunt in Chiddingstone.
Well, welcome to Chiddingstone. You can see actually now lots of people starting to gather ahead of the hunt. We've positioned ourselves strategically by the bar here should we require a little bit of refreshment as the morning goes on, because it isn't just about the horses and the hounds. It's all about the local community, these events, and 200 meets right across the country will be taking place this Boxing Day. We can speak to a couple of those who've come along, Devon and also Tony. Devon, you're looking absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, lovely day, seeing all. It's a beautiful village and a lovely setting for a hunt, and I can't wait to see all the horses in the red jackets.
You come from Oxted?
I do.
Yeah, why did you want to come here then?
Well, I just think getting out and about on you know, at Christmas, out in the nice fresh air, seeing friends and having fun.
Tony, come over here and join us if you would. How long have you been coming to this particular hunt?
Probably about a dozen years.
And why is that? Why is this such an important hunt for you?
Because my late grandfather used to ride, and my late mother, although she didn't ride, she always used to like attending a Boxing Day meet. So it's a family tradition I sort of would like to continue, really, if I can.
Speak, if you can, to the townies, you know, up and down the country that perhaps don't get what these events are all about, how important they are, and look upon them as a sort of an outdated tradition, perhaps, certainly as they were, a bit cruel. What would you say to them?
Well, I think since the ban on actually chasing foxes, with trail hunts and things like that, I don't actually think that it is cruel. It is a way to exercise horses and hounds, and it is just a fabulous spectacle.
And, I mean, what would you say to those in sort of bigger towns and cities, Devon, that probably the last thing they'd ever think of doing on Boxing Day is coming down here? I mean, how much fun is it?
Oh, yes, no, I really encourage people to come. It's great fun. Very nice community feeling, and seeing friends and having a drink and watching all the colour and the horses. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the new Labour government, of course, has promised more restrictions on trail hunting. How concerned would you be if this sport that so many people enjoy was the subject of further laws and restrictions?
I think it would be a retrograde step if they were to do that, but there's no telling what Starmer and his government are likely to do, because they may be feeling that they're throwing some red meat to their town-based supporters.
Do you think the countryside feels a little bit abandoned under Labour?
Oh, definitely, when it comes to fox hunting.
Well, listen, you two enjoy yourselves today and don't drink too much. Leave that to me. So we can see lots of people now gathering for this event. Can't wait, of course. We saw one Nigel Farage just arriving a short time ago as well. I'm sure he'll be leading from the front after, if not his political quarry, then at least enthusiastically following the hunt.
Oh yes, GB News' Mark White there. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Operation Sleigh Bells. Find out what that's all about in just a tick.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
British 10-year-old has beaten Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein in an IQ test, would you believe? Genius Krish Arora got the maximum score of 162, which puts him in the top 1% globally.
Goodness me. Well, Krish's parents noticed his brilliant potential after learning he could read fluently by the age of 4.
Krish, how does it feel to be a child genius?
I feel really happy and privileged.
Aww. Do you see it as a gift that you have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Nichelle, what do you make of your child being a genius? When did it become apparent to you that Krish had something different, something special?
I think at the age of 4, he was doing things that were way beyond and above his age.
Yeah.
He could read fluently and he could spell correctly, and he was doing complex decimal divisions. So we thought that he's on to something. I think there's a spark out here.
Wow. And how are you reading books, Krish? Did you just pick them up from your mum and dad's bookshelf and just start reading to yourself?
We used to go to the library and we got books.
Such a good tip. Such a good tip as parents.
Yeah.
Head to the library, take your kids to the library.
So, Nichelle, can Krish just do it all? Is he just an all-rounder genius? Every subject, every talent, he can do it all?
Absolutely, and he helps out the family as well. He's been teaching me grade 1 piano, and he hopes, and I repeat, he hopes that I'm going to complete it in 12 months' time. And he also helps out Mum, because when Mum is teaching his sister, Mum sometimes says, Krish, go solve that problem and, help your sister out. So, yes, he can do it all.
Krish, you're a superstar.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. Operation Sleigh Bells. It aims to provide gifts to children who would go without this Christmas. As thousands struggle during the cost of living crisis, of course, and it's doing real harm to our economy and bank balances. One 10-year-old, though, wants to make sure that that doesn't happen for kids up and down the country and has pledged to run 5K every day for 5 days. Well, I'm pleased to say that Isla and her mum join us now. Little Fairhurst there and Rebecca Tobin, thank you very much for joining us. Now, Isla, what made you want to do this? It's a pretty big commitment, isn't it?
Yes.
And are you excited to do it? I mean, some people might be watching this saying, oh, no, thank you, I'll be on the sofa this Christmas.
Yes, I did a fundraiser, 5K day for 5 days, and I've done the fundraiser, and Bolton Lads and Girls Club gave me a big well done, which made me feel really nice.
And Rebecca, I mean, you must be really proud of Isla as well.
Yeah, so proud of her. She's done amazing.
And what made you pick this particular cause?
So we are from a town called Bolton, which where the Bolton Lads and Girls Club is, and they run a fundraiser every year called Operation Sleigh Bells. And what happens is you raise the money yourself, and then you go out and buy the presents. So I wanted to make sure that every child had a Christmas present this year, and she managed to raise over £4,000.
Incredible, that's great, that's really good. And I mean, have you felt good doing it as well, as in afterwards? Are you just completely knackered, or do you feel good in yourself for having done it?
I feel like I felt really good in myself, but on my third run, I felt really down. But then I thought of how many children I would make happy by giving them a Christmas present this year. So that made me keep on going and pushing myself.
And Rebecca, how big a problem is this? How much is the evidence there that people are really struggling at the minute?
Yeah, I didn't realise how much of a massive problem that it actually is, that there are children that will get next to nothing or nothing on Christmas Day, not a warm meal. There's children that won't even have a warm house on Christmas Day. And I think once you look more into it, it's a massive problem, especially in the town that we're from. So there's 350 children that wouldn't have received a Christmas present or food at Christmas or anything like that.
Which is an astonishing number, isn't it? I mean, the fact of the matter is that actually without causes such as yours, you know, we often hear that charity starts at home. Well, I think people are struggling and it's just not highlighted enough. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Completely agree with it, yeah. I think I realised because we were talking about Christmas and we sat down and explained this, and then the next morning Isla woke up absolutely heartbroken, and that's when she said, I don't want you to buy the presents, I want to raise money to buy the presents for the children. So that is when we decided to do that.
And Isla, would you do it again next year? Or do you think, oh, come on, Darren, once is enough, I'm not doing this again?
I would carry on doing it. I would.
Yeah, she wants to up the distance this next year, don't you?
Yeah.
What, a 10K are we talking?
No.
No. I mean, honestly, I wish I had the motivation to do something like that. I think you're a little hero, you really are. And you've no doubt put smiles on lots of kids' faces this Christmas, because I think we often forget, actually, those that are left on the sidelines. So highlighting it in the way you have, I think it is an amazing thing to do, and you should be very proud of yourself, Pet. Thank you very much to the two of you for joining us today on this Boxing Day, and a very Merry Christmas to you both as well.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Thank you. Right, that was Rebecca and Isla there, Isla Fairhurst, who actually has ran 5K for over 5 days to get some presents in for kids that would otherwise go without. Now, this is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on the show, including that Boxing Day racing. And I'm not talking about little Isla there either. First of all, though, we're going to get your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 33 minutes past 1. The top story this lunchtime. A double murder investigation has been launched after 2 women have sadly died following reports of a stabbing in Milton Keynes. Thames Valley Police's major crime unit say the woman, aged 38, another 24, died at the scene in Bletchley on Christmas Day. A teenage boy and a man in his late 20s are also seriously injured, though are stable in hospital. A dog was also injured in the incident. It was taken to vets, but sadly did not survive. Police say they have arrested a 49-year-old man on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and he remains in custody. Reform UK's membership has overtaken the Conservatives today, just months after Nigel Farage's return as leader. The party's tracker shows more than 132,000 members today, a 300% surge since Farage's comeback in June. Younger supporters, cheaper fees and frustrations with the Tories are driving growth, as Farage claims the party is the future of British politics. The Conservatives, meanwhile, last reported around 120,000 members in November, but have faced criticism for a lack of direction under leader Kemi Badenoch. Well, Nigel Farage has been speaking to our Home and Security editor Mark White about those figures and had this to say.
Incredible. Over 15,000 people have joined us and given us their 25 quids over the last 4 days. This is an historic moment when the newest party in British politics overtakes the oldest existing political party in the world. Something is happening. So, of course, I'm delighted.
Boxing Day shoppers are avoiding the high street, it seems, with footfall down over 12% compared to last year's data. Retail parks have fared slightly better, but overall activity across UK destinations is more than 10% lower than in 2023. Analysts are blaming the shift to online shopping, along with rising costs for physical stores and changing habits driven by year-round promotions. Barclays estimates, though, we will still spend £4.6 billion today, but most of it, as in previous years, will be online. Well, our reporter Will Hollis is on the High Street in Nottingham for us today with more on what people are spending.
We're expected to see about 22 million people shopping for Boxing Day sales, but only 14 million of those shoppers will actually be real people on the high street. That good chunk of about 8 million people will just be people that will be logging on online, tapping away and making their purchases online, because, as we say, many of the big retailers are staying closed. They would cite that it's because they want people to have more of a family experience, let their staff rest.
And just before I hand back to Darren, let's bring you a developing line from Moscow. We're hearing in the last few minutes, in fact, that the Russian capital has closed all 4 airports in the city. No reason, though, given at this stage for those closures. That sudden shutdown, dubbed by Russian media as a carpet plan, has sparked speculation that it could be due to a potential Ukrainian drone threat in the Russian capital. The unexpected closure has now led to delays in departures and arrivals, around 150 flights so far affected. Russia's aviation watchdog are now advising passengers to check for airline updates. We will keep across the situation as it develops throughout the rest of this afternoon. But that news just into us that all 4 airports in Moscow have been closed at this stage. No reason given for that shutdown. Those are the latest headlines for now. Darren will be back with you very shortly after this break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. This festive season is less white and more grey for many of us, quite overcast scenes throughout the rest of Boxing Day. We have a cold front pushing its way into the north. This has been bringing outbreaks of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some of those quite heavy first thing this morning for Northern Ireland, but generally the front will be steadily moving its way northward, so it should turn drier into the afternoon here. But for much of Scotland, away from the far north, it is going to be a fairly damp and drizzly scene throughout much of today. For England and Wales, there is quite a lot of cloud around. This has lowered quite a bit to produce quite extensive areas of haze and mist around, even some localised fog in places as well, reducing visibility. So it is worth taking care when you're travelling. The best of some sunshine for parts of Yorkshire up towards Northumberland, and also for the far north of Scotland, the Northern Isles, perhaps seeing a few clear spells in there at times, but some cooler conditions here. Temperatures only seeing highs of 8 degrees Celsius. As we move throughout this evening and overnight, this rain band will still be in play for areas of Scotland, perhaps again just skirting its way further northwards across the Highlands, parts of Lewis and Harris, maybe fringing into areas of Orkney as well come the early hours of Friday morning. That cloud, though, is going to be really quite persistent everywhere else. Again, lowering, produce mist, hill fog, very murky to start off Friday morning. Again, there could be some slight travel issues if you are out and about first thing. Temperatures, though, not too chilly at all, mostly between 4 and 6 degrees Celsius. On Friday, it is relatively a very similar picture for most of us. The rain band, at least, though, will weaken, so the rain will be lighter and patchier for areas of Scotland. Some patches of drizzle are possible elsewhere, particularly over higher ground around some coastal districts. Otherwise, though, it's going to be very grey, overcast. Temperatures lowering because of that lack of sunshine, generally around 6 to 9 degrees Celsius. A touch more brightness possible at times over the weekend, but it does turn more unsettled as we head towards New Year. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Merry Christmas, Britain. Now, speaking of Christmas, we've got a lovely package here for you now, featuring the Vocal Zone Voice Studio Choir from South Derbyshire, here performing Away in a Manger. Now, some breaking news just in. Reuters are reporting that Azerbaijan Airlines flight was indeed downed by Russian air defence systems. It comes after NATO have asked for a full investigation into what happened. Troubling times there indeed. Now, my friends, have you got your stirrups, or maybe dressing up in your finest attire is more for you? Horse racing is the perfect sporting tradition on Boxing Day for just that. Today, events are taking place in Aintree, Kempton and Wetherby, and our very own Doogie Beattie is at one of the events in Northern Ireland.
Racing will come to an end about 3:10, and people will be able to go home, enjoy their Boxing Day dinner, take off the glad rags that they've had on display here today. So many well-dressed people enjoying the day, and hopefully they will be back for New Year's Day when racing begins once more.
I always love hearing that man, his voice. I could listen to it all day. Doogie Beatty there. And during today's races, Doogie caught up with the racing broadcaster, Bernard Condren.
Bernard, you should know these horses very well. Tell us, what sort of field have we got here today?
This is, here at Down Royal is one of 11 race meetings across Britain and Ireland, one of 3 race meetings in Ireland alone as well. It's a great opportunity for trainers to find opportunities away from the likes of a Leopardstown or say a Kempton Park, where the main racing is. You normally find with this meeting the likes of Gordon Elliott, Gavin Cromwell, who both train in County Meath, and some of the local trainers here in Ulster, the likes of Stuart Crawford, tend to do particularly well. So it's not necessarily the individual horses you need to worry about. It's more like the trends. If you look back and see what trainers have done well in particular races here over the years.
All right, that was Doogie Beatty speaking to Bernard Condren there. Let's talk to TV personality Ryan Mark Parsons and the political commentator Susie Stride. Susie, you were saying earlier that off air that you've got an appreciation for jockeys and what they put themselves through.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the woman's name, but there's a fantastic film about the first woman to, I think it's win the Grand National. And I mean, this is the great thing, isn't it, about movies, that they bring to life the reality and just the level of sacrifice this woman had to go through and all the opposition she faced. You know, you can't do this, because it had only ever been done by men, you know, and actually she broke through that barrier and she won. You know, as the first female jockey. I'll find her name.
And Ryan, I mean, the narrative around these events is that they're just a glorified booze-up. I nearly said something else there. And that actually it just devolves into complete chaos.
Yes, well, sometimes it does, and I've been a part of that. But that is the fun of horse racing. It is a social event. It's a fantastic time for people to come together. And similar to fox hunting or trout hunting, it's a tradition that we should celebrate in this country. Horses and all kinds of things. But yes, I support it.
Yeah, and on that point, a lot of viewers very split on this, actually. Grumpy Grandad's written in saying our British traditions are under attack across the piece. Very much in agreement with you on that. All right, Ryan and Susie, thank you very much for those remarks. This is Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up, including a look at all the rest of the Boxing Day sport with Aidan McGee.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that, you know, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yeah, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, you know, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very Merry Christmas, Britain. It's time now to go through all the latest sports news. It's not just kicking off here on GB News, but kicking off in the world of sport elsewhere. Aidan McGee is here with us now. Aidan, thank you very much for your company. I want to ask you a question about you're supposed to see games allocated on Boxing Day to be localised, right? But it's seeing now that West Ham playing Southampton, for example, that's meant to be localised. Well, actually, West Ham is not all that close.
No, look, it's all done via a computer database at the beginning of the season. There's an algorithm involved. There are policing implications. You know, for example, you don't want certain fans going to an away game and then bumping into each other in Crewe, a major rail interchange. Right. It's more complicated than you actually think, and it gets more so as the year's gone on. But they try and keep, as you say, any fixtures around holidays. They try and keep them local. It's not possible to get it exactly right because you might have 15 clubs in the Premier League from the south and only 5 from the north, and a couple in the Midlands or whatever. So it's not always easily done. And so something like Bournemouth v Palace today is considered a localised fixture, as is, as you mentioned, Southampton v West Ham. Similar journeys for both sets of supporters, but nonetheless, on Boxing Day, that's going to take a minimum 2.5 hours for them to get there and 2.5 hours back. And the fixture times can be any time of day as well. You know, it could be an early one, a mid 3 o'clock, or an evening one. So it's not really fair on the supporters in that regard. Of course, the clubs don't complain too much because they get the pretty penny from the broadcasters. But when you've got train strikes on as well, Darren, I mean, my lot QPR are going to Swansea today. No trains running from Paddington, I believe, next door. My brother trying to get to Chelsea today. He had to go to North Park at North Greenwich and get the tube across. I tried to get the Elizabeth line to work today, completely closed down. Now, it's awkward because some of these train drivers, Darren, are on 93k a year. Yeah. And they're not even on strike here. Some of these, and we've had football supporters moaning about it for the last couple of days, some of these are just deciding not to operate because they're claiming to have engineering works or whatever. And I think that once again the football fans are left out of pocket. Honestly, well, not so much out of pocket, but certainly inconvenienced.
They wind me up something rotten, Aidan, so don't get us started on that. But the other point we were discussing there off air was the fact that Amazon are playing games today. Now, what does that say about the Sky chokehold over the rights to televise games?
Well, look, I mean, I think we're not far off a point now where, and today, I mean, it's not the first time Amazon have had a full programme of games. In the last couple of seasons, they have 2 or 3 dates in the calendar or in the season where they show all the matches and they are available to watch. But I think it might be a forerunner or a glimpse into the future. We've talked many times now about Premflix. I'm not saying it would be called that, but the idea of a Netflix where you pay your money, you take your choice, and we may see the end of the 3 o'clock blackout on a Saturday. Now, for those who are uninitiated, the 3 o'clock blackout on a Saturday means that you can't show live matches at 3 p.m. on a Saturday in order to protect the pyramid. It's so that the general feeling over the last few decades, and I'm not sure it applies as rigidly now as it did 2 or 3 decades ago, but if Man United are playing at 3 o'clock on a Saturday against Liverpool, then a lot of people are going to stay at home and watch that instead of going to watch their local team in the League One, League Two, or even at non-league.
So this could help smaller clubs?
Well, a lot of clubs will say it doesn't. I have spoken, though, and I've no real skin in the game, to be honest with you, but I don't think QPR's attendances will be affected by the Saturday blackout. They're more likely to be affected by midweek games. In fact, there was a move by the EFL 5-6 years ago to try and reduce the number of midweek fixtures because the clubs can't make as much money. Yeah. You'll see a dip of about 10% on the attendance. But I've spoken to some people who sell hospitality suites at some of the smaller clubs, and they're saying to me that on a Saturday, if they could sell their hospitality suite with Man United against Liverpool going on in the background while they're in their box or while they're in their lounge, it may be more appealing because they could keep an eye on both. And that might, and bearing in mind, it's businesses that buy these tables and they want to entertain. They're not necessarily fans of the club who would go on an occasion like that. They might like to see both.
It's an interesting point, and to be honest with you, I'd be quite delighted to see Amazon get it because I think the commentary's a lot better.
Yeah, it's very good. I have to say, it's very impressive. It's kind of a revert to type kind of way. We're seeing some older. I mean, sort of Jim Rosenthal at Ipswich a few weeks ago. I mean, you know, he was a fantastic broadcaster, just put out to graze by the main MSM, and great to see him back because he was greatly missed.
It's all gone totally off track. Woke joke.
Yeah, I know. I should update you on Manchester City. Everton 1-1. As I hear right now, I mean, plenty of time.
So still,
City took the lead. They've been pegged back. They're not playing well at the moment, but I think we're roughly about 15-20 minutes into the second half, so we'll update you on that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, my friend. And I appreciate your company as well. You've been watching Merry Christmas Britain on GB News. Thank you very much for your company. Next up, it's the Jubes & Co Christmas Special. She won't hold back. First of all, we'll get a look at the weather with Jonathan.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Dull, damp, dreary, all words that sum up the forecast for many of us over the next few days. Whilst high pressure is in charge, extending in from parts of continental Europe, there is a lot of cloud trapped underneath this high, producing our anticyclonic gloom. Quite misty and murky scenes into this evening and overnight, particularly across Wales, central southern areas of England. Band of rain just pushing across the far north of Scotland, skirting into the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides and towards Orkney as well, quite damp and drizzly here. With all the cloud around though, temperatures won't be dropping too far at least. Will certainly remain frost-free, but we might get down towards 4-6 degrees Celsius in a few spots. As you start off Friday morning then, particularly across central southern areas, it is worth bearing in mind there could be some localised travel issues due to that reduced visibility from all the mist and fog that will be around first thing. Perhaps the best chance of a few brighter spells throughout Friday will be across parts of eastern Scotland, but further towards the west we are going to see this rain band in play for a good portion of the day. But into the afternoon, hopefully, we'll start to see that rain easing off a touch more. It will turn lighter and patchier here. Otherwise, for much of Northern Ireland, England and Wales, really Friday is a very similar situation to today. Widespread grey, overcast skies. A lot of that mist and murk really still lingering around to produce a fairly dull situation. Temperatures, because of that lack of sunshine, are going to be dropping down a bit. We might just skirt into double digits across some parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northern England. There is going to be very little change on that as we head into Friday evening and the weekend. They're only slowly starting to see a few brighter spells arriving as we head towards Saturday and Sunday. Most notably, though, it is looking to turn more unsettled as we head into the new working week, particularly across Scotland. So it's worth staying up to date with the forecast as we head towards New Year. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on G.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
morning,
to see you both
Hi.
this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Very good afternoon to you. It is 2 o'clock and a very happy Boxing Day from the GB News team. Well, let's start with news that a plane that crashed, killing 38 people, was shot down by Russian air defence systems, according to sources speaking to the Reuters news agency. The Azerbaijan Airlines plane had been flying east across the Caspian Sea when it changed course and then went down in Kazakhstan. Footage circulating online shows the plane making a steep descent before crashing into a fireball, with parts of its fuselage torn away from the wings. In the last few minutes, the broadcaster Euronews, citing Azerbaijani government sources, reported that a preliminary investigation has found that a Russian surface-to-air missile was fired at the plane. That was during a drone air activity in the area. That then exploded, they say, next to the aircraft, with shrapnel hitting passengers and cabin crew. An investigation is now underway, but that news just breaking in the last half hour or so, that sources say a Russian air defence system did indeed shoot down that Azerbaijani airline plane. Well, in some more breaking news here at home, a double murder investigation has been launched today after 2 women have died following reports of a stabbing in Milton Keynes. Thames Valley Police's major crime unit say the woman, aged 38, and the other 24 died at the scene in Bletchley on Christmas Day. A teenage boy and a man in his late 20s were also seriously injured, but at this stage are understood to be in a stable condition in hospital. A dog was also injured in the incident and it was taken to vets, but sadly didn't survive. Police have arrested a 49-year-old man on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and he remains in custody. Reform UK's membership has overtaken the Conservatives just months after Nigel Farage's return as leader. The party's tracker shows more than 132,000 members by midday today. That's a 300% surge since Farage's comeback in June. Younger supporters, cheaper fees and frustrations with the Tories are all driving the growth, as Farage claims reform is the future of British politics. It comes as the Conservatives last reported around 120,000 members. That was in November, but have since faced criticism for a lack of direction under leader Kemi Badenoch. Well, the Reform Party leader Nigel Farage has been speaking to our Home and Security editor Mark White about that news today.
Incredible. Over 15,000 people have joined us and given us their 25 quids over the last 4 days. This is an historic moment. when the newest party in British politics overtakes the oldest existing political party in the world, something is happening. So, of course, I'm delighted.
And Boxing Day shoppers are avoiding the high street today, with footfall down over 12% compared to last year. Retail parks, though, have fared slightly better, but overall activity across the UK destinations is still more than 10% lower than in 2023. Analysts are blaming the shift to online shopping, rising costs for physical stores and changing habits that have been driven by year-round promotions. Barclays estimates that we will still, though, spend £4.6 billion today, but most of it, as in previous years, will be spent online. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around an hour, and now it's over to Michelle Dewberry.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, hello there. It's finally upon us, in the words of Noddy Holden. It's Christmas! How exciting. You know what I thought? It'd be rude then, wouldn't it, not to do a Dupes and Curse special. So here we are, delighted to be sharing this Christmas with you. And boy, have we got a lot to discuss. Let's cast our mind back then, shall we, to July. It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? The general election. Still, massive debate raging on about whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing. But what did it mean for this country, and what will the future look like going forward under the Labour